Hey guys, welcome to another video. I am Juan, I am just one reader, and today I have for you my July wrap-up. So one thing you should know is that I am a teacher, so that means that I don't get a lot of vacations, but when I do, boy do I get vacations. So July and August are the months that I'm getting my summer break, and I've been able to read a lot of books, which I don't usually do because when I am at work, I am very busy. Being a teacher is incredibly busy, so I don't get to read a lot. Usually, when I'm teaching, I get to read about maybe 4, 5, 6 novels every month. I mean, tops. And this July, I managed to read 16 books, which I think I'm extremely proud of. And because there are so many books in this wrap-up, I'm only going to show them to you, mention like a brief summary or whatever, and give you my rating on Goodreads. Also, another thing you should know is how I rate my books. Basically what I do is, this is an example. What I do is, in order to remember all of my opinions, I put a post-it at the end of the book and I just write pros and cons or likes and dislikes. So that's what I'm going to give you today. Without further ado, here is my July wrap-up of 16 books. So the first novel that I read in the month of July was Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews. So what I wrote in the post-it was, on the positive side, I thought it was not pretentious, it was really my kind of humor, there were a lot of dialogues, it was very direct and straightforward, and the writing style was great. The protagonist had a really fresh voice. And the only negative things were that the plot could have been more exciting. I gave Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews 4 stars on Goodreads. The second book that I read in July was Forbidden by Tabitha Zuzuma. And I have to say I was a little bit reluctant when I started reading this because I'm always a little bit reluctant when it comes to YA because there are some great things out there, but there's some really shitty writing as well. So I was kind of going into it. And oh boy, Jesus Christ in heaven, was I blown away. On the positive side, it was fast-paced in general. The writing style was just beautiful. There was a lot of description about the family dynamics. There was a lot of hardship in these stories. The characters were super developed, super rich and interesting, and the ending was brutal and horrible, but it was the right ending. And the negative things were, the characters often have unlikely voices and dialogues, and it could get a little bit slow in some very long paragraphs. But overall, I loved it. I gave Forbidden by Tabitha Zuzuma 4 stars on Goodreads. Then I read this short story collection by Edgar Allan Poe, and it's a lovely edition that I found that is just really pretty. It's illustrated by a French artist, and let me see, there's some illustrations over there. Well, the end paper is beautiful. It's actually little Edgar Allan Poe drawings. It's a beautiful book. I really enjoy Edgar Allan Poe's writing. His stories are perfect, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The next book I read is The Whispering Skull, which is the second book in the Lockwood and Co. series by Jonathan Stroud. And for this one, I wrote on the positive side that the world building was great. The writing style is awesome, elegant, and clear, and the characters were very funny and really interesting. And I really like the world that Jonathan Stroud has built in this new trilogy or series or whatever. And on the negative side, I wrote that it felt very episodical, like separate adventures instead of being part of a higher arc or of a bigger story. And the plot, honestly, I didn't find very interesting enough, and I just lost interest, and for the last part of the book, I really had to skim read. And unfortunately, for those reasons, I ended up giving The Whispering Skull by Jonathan Stroud 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Then I read my favorite book of the month, which was More Than This by Patrick Ness. This is the only book in July that received a 5-star rating. More Than This is a story that just played with my heart, my head, my emotions, my rational being, my emotional being. it just got me, it's just, this book kicked me on the floor and just left me there to die. It was awesome. Also, this is a really, really pretty edition. It's one of those hardbacks that don't have a dust jacket, and this is, you know, like a little door and it opens. It's really clever. And I ordered this from the book depository, and I got a signed copy by Mr. Patrick Ness. Thank you very much. Positive. This book played with me. It is terrifying, beautiful, and important. It was absolutely perfect. On the negative side, I just put that part 1 of the book was a little bit slow. Of course, I gave more than this, 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was La Ultima Noche in Tremor Beach by Miquel Santiago. This is a Spanish thriller, and it was so engrossing. It was really atmospheric. It was really suspenseful. I'm sorry, I wrote this posted in Spanish, so I'm translating as I go. It was really suspenseful. It was fast-paced. I really liked the characters. And on the negative side, I put that the writing style could be a little bit cheesy at times. And the ending sort of, I don't know, it was good, but it lacked something else. It was a little bit of a happy ending, and I'm not really a big fan of happy endings. But overall, really enjoyed it. I gave La Ultima Noche in Tremor Beach by Miquel Santiago 3.5 out of 5. Then I read the extremely popular book Aristotle and Dante, Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin O'Leary Science. I liked this book. It didn't quite live up to the hype for me. On the positive side, I really liked the characters. I thought the topics that were discussed in this book were really relevant. It talked about the struggles with which we all live. It was fast-paced, and there was a gay relationship, which I really enjoy seeing in books. And on the negative side, I really disliked the author's voice. It felt pretentious to me. The dialogues and scenes seemed very unlikely, and I just didn't buy a lot of this book. I gave Aristotle and Dante 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I was insanely excited about this, but honestly, my conclusion is I really do prefer the movie to the book. On the positive side, I wrote that the structure and concept are brilliant and original, and David Mitchell is some sort of genius. On the negative side, I really thought the book was kind of boring. The climax of the stories and the way that they were delivered wasn't all that interesting. There were too many unnecessary details for my taste, and it was longer than it should have been, but that's just my taste. I gave Cloud Atlas 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read a wonderful book, The Tweets by Roald Dahl. On the positive side, it was funny, it was whimsical and quirky. I think it was very well written, and it has a great message for children and people in general. And on the negative side, I just wanted it to be longer because, look, I read this in like 10 minutes. I gave The Tweets by Roald Dahl 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This was another of my favorite books this month. I wrote on the positive side that it was beautifully written. The dialogues were great. I really fell in love with the circus itself. This book was pretty big, but it was surprisingly fast-paced, and the way that it was structured in like the different time periods and the different POVs, I think was really great. On the negative side, I wrote the magic system and the challenge in this book were not that clear to me. But overall, I loved this book. I gave The Night Circus 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Broche, and I sort of have mixed opinions here. On the positive side, I think I really loved the dog stories. I think they were awesome. And on the negative side, some stories did not connect with me necessarily, and I felt that they were kind of uninteresting and not really all that funny. There was a lot of talk here about some mental health issues, and I didn't find the writing of those stories particularly to my taste. I gave Hyperbole and a Half 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm really proud of myself for having read a classic, and I wrote on the positive side, I really liked the characters. This book was faster and much more accessible than I thought it would be. I really liked the metaphors and how poetic it was, and I really loved the ending. And on the negative side, I thought the language was too flowery, but of course it's a classic. There were parts that were a little bit dry and dull, like they had some unnecessary, uninteresting details, and I wanted it to be over quickly. Even though it was fast-paced, I kind of wanted to just get to the real stuff. I gave The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald 3.5 out of 5. Next up is Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler. On the positive side, I thought the premise was really original and the artwork is stunning. But then on the negative side, I wrote that I felt the writing style was really all over the place. Like it was, for example, there was a lot of paragraphs that were 3 pages long. They were just insanely long. So it got really boring. I thought the book was really pretentious. The writing was pretentious. The characters were pretentious. Nothing really happened in this book. That's just how I felt. And the annoying characters, annoying writing. I gave Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler 1 star. Then I have a book that I loved, and it's Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I had previously read Eleanor and Park, and I hugely disliked it. I don't know why, but I couldn't stand the book. So I went in, and I really tried to have an open mind, and it worked. On the positive side of Fangirl, I thought it was funny, it was light, warm, the character development was amazing. I really felt attached to everything and everyone in this book. It was a very psychologically relevant book. It was engrossing, and oh my god, Levi. That's all I'm gonna say about this book. Levi. And on the negative side, I thought it could have been a little bit faster paced, and there was just a lot of fan fiction. The fan fiction that Kath, the protagonist, writes, a lot of it is written down here, and it was interesting, it was okay, but I think I would have preferred to have less of her fan fiction in the novel. I gave Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read another one of my favorites this month, And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, the Queen of Mystery. I absolutely devoured this book. I think I read it in like 4 or 5 hours tops. It was magical. On the positive side, I wrote, the characters, amazing. The plot, excellent. It's like a It's like a well-oiled machine. The writing style was beautiful, elegant, yet concise. On the negative side, the reveal at the end was a little bit forced, like a little bit too perfect, but I loved it nonetheless. And I gave And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie 4.5 out of 5. Wow. And the last book that I read in July, which I actually finished last night, was The BFG by Roald Dahl. On the positive side, it was funny, occurrent, and whimsical, and I loved the Queen of England in this book. Jesus, it was amazing. Everything that happened towards the ending was great. On the negative side, I thought the BFG himself got a little bit annoying towards the end because it was just ridiculous. Too much dialogues that were unnecessarily ridiculous and stupid. It was a little bit too much. And I thought this book was actually a little bit longer than it should have been. I gave the BFG 3 out of 5 stars. So there you go, guys. Those were the 16 books that I read in the month of July. Hope you enjoyed them. Comment, subscribe. Have a good time, continue reading, and I'll see you on the next video.